News making headlines from all corners of the country. And today we have an update coming from both Mombasa and Kisumu. That's coming your way shortly. My name is Edith Kimani. Let's get this show on the road. Well, we begin at the coast, where 4 mosques that were closed by the police last week after they were allegedly taken over by radical youths are expected to be reopened this afternoon. Mina, Sakina, Musa and Swafar mosques will be reopened after 2 days of talks between top Muslim leaders, professionals and the Mombasa County leadership.
Faithfuls and some coast leaders were called on the government to reopen them. The mosques had been at the center of controversy over claims they were being used to radicalize youths in the coastal town of Mombasa. 2 days of talks between different leaders will now see Muslim leaders and professionals appoint a permanent sheikh for each and name a special committee to preside over the mosques in Kisauni and Majengo.
The national government, in conjunction with the county government, will provide adequate security to facilitate smooth running of all the mosques. 4, that those found to cause disturbances to be dealt with individually.
The mosques were closed last week by security officers after a raid on the Musa Mosque and a soup in which more than 250 youth were arrested and later charged with being members of a terrorist organization. That soup saw the police display various weapons and literature that were found in the mosques.
Sisi twasema msikiti ni mahali patakatifu na msikiti ni mahali pa ibada na msikiti lazima uheshimiwe kwa vile ipasavyo kuheshimiwa.
Even as the mosques are reopened this afternoon, it has been agreed that the government will reopen the mosques unconditionally and that a task force of 9 would be picked to run the 4 mosques and address the thorny question of youth radicalization, which has been blamed for the spate of attacks that have hit the tourist town ahead of Christmas holidays.
Let's now link up with our senior coast reporter, Ferdinand Omondi, who, as I understand, you're standing right outside a mosque which has been reopened. Could you please give us details of this?
Yes, good afternoon, Edith. I'm right outside Masjid Musa here in Majengo, which has just reopened. And now security fires are currently underway. A few minutes ago, Mombasa Governor Hassan Joho and Mombasa County Commander Robert Kikur and the County Commissioner Nelson Marwa unlocked the 2 entrances to Masjid Musa to allow for prayers with a call on the preachers there to teach what they describe as acceptable. At the same time, the County Commissioner Nelson Marwa has stated that the state will continue providing security and monitoring the areas to ensure that there's no breach of the law. But the local leaders have called on the people here to maintain peace and that those with divergent views not to resort to violence, but rather to speak to the people so that it can be a battle of ideas and not guns and flashes. It is.
All right, Ferdinand, can we just talk about this task force for a while? Because it's very unusual to have a group of individuals coordinating what is happening in places of worship. How exactly is this meant to work?
Well, as you know, the mosques were closed because the police or the state felt that they were under the management of people who are described as radical and who are allowing extremist views to be expressed here. So the demand was for new committees to be formed to actually monitor those who would be answerable to the state in case there are any breaches. And the resolution that the local leaders arrived at with the also religious leaders was that they would be placed under the management of area village elders. Committees have been done away with, at least for now. So it is Wazee Wamta, as they are called, from the local areas. For instance, Masjid Musa will be under the local leadership of the area leaders of Majengo. Swafar will be under the local leaders of Kisauni, and Mina in Topa will also be under the local leader in that area, so that there is a bit of neutrality in the formation of what is an acceptable leadership of the 4 mosques.
All right. Ferdinand, I'm just curious to know what the youth who attend these mosques, the ones who are being alleged to be extremists or to be radicalized, what their thoughts on this are, both the closing and now the reopening of the mosques.
To be honest, any of those who have been perceived to be radical have kept a low profile all through. The locals have come here, for example, in Masjid Musa in large numbers. So far, those who are speaking have been the local leaders. And even in fact, those who have been placed to manage them have decided to keep a low profile. you may realize that some of the moderate leaders of some other places have also been targets of unknown people, and a few imams who have been described as moderates have been killed. So those who are now currently under management are keeping a low profile, but hopefully this will be what it will be until now there's a bit of stability in the leaders. But so far it is only the state, local leaders and politicians who are speaking about the matter. But the general relief amongst the people that the mosques have been opened to be the places of prayer that they are meant to be.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ferdinand Omondi, keeping us abreast with news coming from that region. We now move to Kisumu, where the body of the late Homa Bay Senator Otieno Kajwang has arrived in Kisumu as he now begins a final journey that will see him buried in his home in Homa Bay. The body arrived in Kisumu early morning and was received by hundreds of residents who described the late Kajwang as a humorous and loyal supporter of ODM. The viewing of his body in Kisumu will be at Ofafa Hall, and there will be another stopover in Kendu Bay ahead of an interdenominational prayer service at the Homa Bay County Stadium. Let's now speak to Frank Otieno, who is in Kisumu. Actually, I understand it's Fred Omulo who is in Kisumu to just give us an update on that. Fred, is the program going as scheduled? The people, the masses who have turned up to view this body, have they been able to do so?
Yes, Edith, the program is actually on schedule and has already moved ahead. The body arrived here at around 9 a.m. in the morning. The late senator received a hero's welcome. Remember, this is one of the city the late senator loved the most. He used to spend a lot of weekends around here. He had numerous friends and numerous associates, and he would meet them. He would usually relax at a hotel called the Sunset Hotel around here. So the body arrived at 9 a.m. There was a very rapturous reception right from the airport. The whole route that they were using was completely mobbed with all sorts of members of the public turning up to escort the body from the airport. It went directly to Jomo Kenyatta Sports Ground, where there was a brief viewing for a few people because the crowds were so immense, as you can see from the pictures there. Then they held a small rally, you could call it that, and the court leaders came here in full force. Raila Odinga, accompanied by senators as well as MPs, they've addressed the crowds that gathered here, mourners, and all sorts of people who in one way or the other were connected to Kajwang. They've already finished that session, which ended at around 11:30 a.m. this morning, and then the convoy was escorted as it sneaked its way out of Jomo Kenyatta Sports Ground, right around Oginga Odinga Street, onto Nairobi Road. They are now headed to Kendu Bay, but they'll be making brief stopovers, addressing the public in different places, because we've just received reports that in different centers along that route, people have gathered and are planning to, just have a brief stop and bid their farewell to the late senator.
All right. You're obviously describing something that will no doubt bring that city to a standstill. And I'm just curious what the leaders said. You did mention earlier that the former prime minister was there. What was the message to the people when he addressed them?
Court leader Raila Odinga was very brief in his remarks. First of all, he thanked the national government and the Senate as well as the National Assembly for the contributions that they made towards the family and towards this whole process of bidding farewell to the late senator. Then he broke into a traditional Luo rites that accompany the burial of a hero, singing songs, chanting chants of Joey, 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 which means buffalo, buffalo, meaning Kajwang was a fearless leader, a hero who led from the front. Then after that, since this was a very improvised process, they concluded with a little bit of court politics, warning rebel MPs. The Kisumu Central MP, Ken Obura, was around here, and the hostility of the crowd was such that he didn't get a chance to speak, and he actually left. So that was basically the message that was being communicated here. Other people such as James Orengo, Senator Mudhama, Junet Mohammed also spoke, and a lot of other friends of ODM were also here, cheering up the crowd, telling them to live up to the ideals of the late senator and other such messages.
Okay. Fred, before we allow you to leave, could you please tell us what the itinerary is looking like between this afternoon and tomorrow when he is expected to be buried?
Well, the cortege is now headed towards Kindo Bay. There'll be a lot of stops along the way because there are major centers such as Ahero, such as Paponditi in Nyakach. So there are likely to be brief stopovers in such places. But eventually they'll stop at Kindo Bay for not more than an hour, and they'll do the same thing that they did here in Kisumu, after which they will proceed for an interdenominational service in Homa Bay Stadium. So that should come to a close at around 5-6 p.m. today evening. Then after that, they will head to his homestead in Waondo village, Mbeta constituency, where they'll perform a traditional funeral wake. There's a traditional funeral wake where the dead person is brought to his homestead, and members of the family and close relatives of the clan, they sit there overnight, they don't sleep, they sit next to the body, they pray, they sing until morning. The body will then be taken to Waondo Primary School, where they will have a funeral. After the funeral, the body will be returned to his homestead in Waondo, where it will be buried with members of his family and his clan, close members of his family and his clan, to accompany the interment.
All right, thank you very much, Fred Omulo, who is following that story for us in Kisumu. And as he mentioned, Kajwang will be buried tomorrow in Homa Bay. And we will definitely cover that for you as well as the country bids farewell to the late senator. Let's now focus our attention on the state of insecurity in Mandera, and the Kenya National Union of Nurses has now joined other unions in calling for their members to leave Mandera and other volatile areas following the senseless killing of 28 people by suspected Al-Shabaab militia. Now, the union's chairperson, John B., has asked nurses to move out of Mandera and return only when security is guaranteed. Now, remember that this statement comes just days after the government refused to airlift civil servants who sought refuge at a military camp out of Mandera.
We are urging our members that please move out of that place until security situation in that area is improved. I want to admonish the government that there is no way somebody can stay somewhere awaiting for his impending death.
Elsewhere, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, or IEBC Dispute Resolution Committee, says the law on party lists for marginalized groups and people with disabilities should be amended to set clear criteria on who qualifies to be nominated by political parties in parliament and county assemblies. Now, the committee's chairman, Thomas Letangule, has also urged political parties to adopt internal party democracy in order to reduce disputes. He was speaking at the launch of the case digest of the decisions of the committee, which handled close to 2,000 complaints from the last poll.
I'm happy that political leaders are here and they can hear what I'm saying, because mostly we were handling disputes which they ought to have done it themselves. And going forward, we will propose the law to be changed in such a way that political parties can address their own disputes. Political parties must be strengthened to look at their nomination process, to be fair, to have even their own mechanisms of handling disputes arising from their nomination process before it comes to the commission. There is also need to see how nomination process, the law can be strengthened. For example, operationalizing the provisions of Article 100, which deals with marginalized people and minorities, so that a clear definition of who is marginalized and who is not is stated in the law, so that we can know how to pick a marginalized person from a list. And then also the issue of disability. We had challenges about how to pick a disabled person.
One of the success stories of 2013 elections, which must be said without any fear of contradiction, was the manner in which the IEBC Committee on Election Dispute Resolution managed and determined and disposed of the cases that were filed before them within a record time.
In our view, the primary institutions of democracy are political parties. Fairness and level playing fields must obviously start at this level. If political parties continue to bungle their nominations, then the country's democracy is actually lying on eggshells. The PPTT would like to encourage and insist that internal party institutions should demonstrate maturity, tolerance, and fairness.
On security matters, 5 people were today arraigned at the Makadara court over the stripping of a woman in Kayole 2 weeks ago. Now, the 5 suspects who were identified by the victim were arrested yesterday by a special police squad, which has been set up to curb the increasing cases of stripping women in public. The case was, however, postponed when it turned out that one of the suspects was deaf and needed an interpreter in order for the case to continue. This is the first successful arrest since the first case of stripping was reported. The police are still appealing to victims of public stripping and sexual abuse to come forward and positively identify their attackers. The Standard Group, this is good news, so listen carefully, has launched the second phase of their countrywide promotion dubbed Jicheki na 100,000 Kila Siku to reward viewers of KTN, such as yourself, and faithful readers of the Standard newspaper. Speaking during the launch, the Standard Group Managing Director, Print Division, Francis Munyoki, said the first edition of the promotion had been very successful. The head of the marketing department, Doreen Bayer, says lucky winners will walk away with 100,000 shillings every day for buying a copy of the Standard newspaper. A total of 4.5 million shillings is up for grabs in the promotion that is set to run from December 1st, 2014 to 14th January next year.
Pick our paper every day and we'll publish a number at the back of every paper that you pick. You'll be required to keep your paper up to the Saturday. We'll publish all the winners on the Sunday newspaper, and also you will know who the winners were by watching KTN on Saturday at 6:20 in the evening.
This is a fair and transparent process. Each lottery ticket from each newspaper is actually unique. You will not find one number repeated throughout the 45 days. So you have an equal chance each day of winning.
I will be reading and calling out the name of the winners, and I hope that you'll be coming to the Standard Group to have yourself your 100,000. Kama umejicheki na 100,000 kila siku.
Well, good luck to all our viewers. I wish I was allowed to participate. Sadly, I don't think staff members are. And if you're looking for the details on how you can win, the details will be on your screens at the bottom there, scrolling. If you're a loyal viewer, then you'll definitely catch those details. Elsewhere, African governments have been challenged to formulate policies that will address causes of ill health across Africa. That is a call that was made in the just concluded Africa Conference on Health held in Nairobi. Now, AMREF Africa Director added that there is need for the African continent to invest more in quality health services in order to improve the output in the continent. The participants also called for accountability, efficiency, and value for money in use of healthcare resources by both public and private health stakeholders.
In the last 50 years, and we had the highest ever investment in health, our health system still leave a lot to be desired. Our people are still dying from diseases that were eliminated from other continents years ago. They cannot easily access health care that people in the developed world take for granted.
Our desire as a government is to accelerate progress towards meeting the Millennium Development Goals by 2015. We have invested in improving all aspects of delivering health to the people of Kenya and have made progress in reducing maternal mortality from 460 deaths in 2010 to 360 per 100,000 live births in 2013.
The international community has already shifted the agenda from Millennium Development Goals to Social Development Goals, 17 of them. We are in consensus in Africa that, yes, we may, but we must not leave behind what is not being completed.
Here's a universal truth. We all need healthcare. Here's another universal truth. Not everyone can afford it. And so what's being done to ensure that we all get the medical cover we require? Michael Karanja is currently sitting on the chat section with Simon Olekigoti, who's the CEO of NHIF, to answer these questions. Karanja, over to you.
Quite rightly so, Edith. Like you mentioned, healthcare is one of those things that everyone wishes that they could have, but don't have the kind of access that they would like. And I'm not joined by Simon Olekrigoti, who's the CEO of the National Hospital Insurance Fund. Simon, healthcare, it's one of those things that everyone Kenyan needs, but access has become a challenge. As the government body or institution charged with ensuring that there is universal healthcare, how is NHIF stepping up to the plate to ensure that it actually trickles down to the people who need most?
Thank you, Karanja. NHIF is a vehicle or the government uses to achieve universal health care. And we've had a lot of programs line up for us to achieve this goal. One such program is the health insurance subsidy. We call it HISP. HISP is a joint World Bank, government of Kenya and NHIF to ensure the poor of the poorest.
And is there money that has been set into that HES program in terms of how you're able to subsidize those people, the most vulnerable in our society?
Yes. What we did, we are currently doing what we call a pre-test study in 13 counties. Then we will cover all the 47 counties. We got data from the Ministry of Labor, data which we utilize to identify who these poor are, and then we register them, we give them NHIF cards. We have finished the process of identifying the health facilities which they and their dependents will visit once they are sick, and we are ready to roll out. We've gotten about 20 million shillings already paid to NHIF, and these beneficiaries will start benefiting from 1st of January.
20 billion shillings, looking at those vulnerable, doesn't sound like much, but just looking at the kind of ailments that people come with, does it cover all ranges of illnesses, or what exactly does the subsidy cover for?
Yeah, the subsidy now covers primary health care. Currently, we are using government facilities, and government facilities, we don't cover maybe surgeries or other referral diseases, but we cover mainly all other elements. There is no discrimination. Just like NHIF does not discriminate any member, we don't say we cannot register you as our member because you suffer from a certain disease.
And just looking at that, in terms of just getting enough money to make sure that these covers actually have the intended benefits, is NHIF and the government looking for a way where perhaps that will be able to be stepped up? That if someone wants to come in for maternity, a minor surgery before being referred, is there a way that perhaps NHIF can step up to the plate and ensure that universal healthcare, it doesn't mean that someone has to start fundraising to go to hospital?
Our wish is that we stop the Arambis for healthcare. And I'm very happy with the kind of participation now we have with governors. We've had a number of engagements with the governors, and they have come out with robust programs to, one, many counties are now sponsoring the elderly, the disabled, and the orphans. And I've signed some kind of memorandum to NHIF that we are able to ensure those. Now, that program is a way to achieve universal health. We cannot achieve universal health all of a sudden, but we are going one by one. As you know, the government has insured all the civil servants, both in and outpatient. And we are happy to say that the scheme is doing very well. We have managed to take several patients out of the country for overseas treatment. And if gradually we move now to HISP, and then we move now to the governors, and then eventually we go to other Kenyans, we will achieve.
Yeah, just a two-pronged question as you wind up. How many people are you targeting with in terms of just looking at ensuring that the vulnerable are covered? And secondly, there's been this whole issue about NHIF rates moving from about 300 to about 500 shillings or 1,000 and plus for those earning a higher salary. How is that then going to ensure that NHIF is able to offer not just for the vulnerable but for anyone who needs that kind of assistance when it comes to healthcare?
Yes, health provision is a very expensive affair.
Yeah,
very expensive, and it has been tried. You know, the Obamacare and all this, and NHIF alone or members of NHIF alone cannot be able to provide for everybody. So there are engagements with the government, and the government can set aside some amount of tax revenue, yeah, so that
for healthcare.
For healthcare, this has been my wish. We have had very successful discussions with COTU, very successful discussions with FKE, who were initially opposed for us to enhance the rates. Their concerns have been addressed. One of their major concerns was not really that we don't provide, we don't enhance the rates. It was the issues of governance, governance, the issues of ability to roll out, and I'm sure they are now satisfied. Can see that.
Simon, just if you had a wish list in terms of the money you'd require just to ensure that healthcare is available, how much would you be looking at?
If you can give me 58 billion in one financial year, I can be able to take Kenyans to universal health.
Thank you very much. That has been Samuel Olekiriguti, the CEO of the National Hospital Insurance Fund, just telling us about the challenges that they are facing as an institution just to ensure that there is universal healthcare and the steps that they would like to see to be taken to ensure that every Kenyan has access to healthcare. We take a short commercial break, but when we come back, I will be chatting to Nzioka Whitehouse, the Director of Corporate Affairs at Safaricom, just telling us about this new fund that they launched yesterday called the Spark Venture Fund. So don't go too far. And welcome back to KTN Newsdesk. Now, yesterday, for those of you watching the news, Safaricom launched something quite interesting, a Spark Venture Fund, where they're putting up $1 million, roughly about 90 million shillings, just to fund startup companies that have these great innovative ideas. And in studio now, I'm joined by Nzioka Whitehouse, who's the Director for Corporate Affairs at Safaricom. Nzioka, what led to actually setting up the fund in the first place?
Well, a series of steps, including wrong steps. We've been trying over a number of years to really try and engage with the developer community, to interact with them and to see where we can add value. Given the number of mobile phones in the market, and particularly the ones that are on our network, we feel that in the era of mobile data, the opportunities for software development, local software development, are immense. And we've been trying to find a way to collaborate with that particular sector of the industry to see whether they can add value to us and to our customers.
The biggest challenge, I guess, for startups I hear every time when you talk to them is funding, because they have these great ideas but don't know where to quite take the next step. We've seen this in the Silicon Valley, where companies come in actually pumping money into people who have something of a good idea. Is that the same route you're looking to get into in terms of funding and actually being a partner with them as they grow?
So it's slightly more different. What we've done is we're not really coming in at the idea stage. There are various stages in the innovation. You have the people who are at concept stage, those who are at early stage and they're still trying out their various ideas and concepts, and there are those who have gone past that stage. They've got a product, whether it's in a beta format or not, and that product works. They may have customers, or they may already have a use case that is commercialized, but what they're looking for now is scale and to improve on the proposition. So these are already established entrepreneurs who are now looking for a step to the next level, and that's where we are playing our entry.
And you're not giving out little money. I think it's between $20,000 and $250,000.
Okay, minimum investment will be $75,000. Maximum will be $250,000, and it's going to be in one of two ways, or maybe even a mix of both. One is looking at equity, so coming in, taking an equity position in that company, which will entail us doing a valuation, looking at the idea, and injecting the money, not to remove the current owners, but to give them working capital to enable them to scale up their businesses. So whether they need to hire new coders, whether they need marketing costs to give their product more visibility, whether they need computing power, or access to more technology, and that's what those funds will go towards, to their working capital. We may also consider debt instruments, so convertible loans, which can later turn into equity, or if in the event the company is unable to service that facility, then there's a lien over the shares. It's a very serious grown-up investment. It's not child's play. It's not small change, and it's really a shift in our position, because we feel that there are immense ideas, there are huge ideas here, and we want to do two things. One is we want to catalyze the investment community, because there's a lot of capital sitting out there. There's a lot of patient capital sitting out there. People who are ready to see our young companies grow over a period of time. But nobody is ready to take the first step. Yeah. So we're going to try and catalyze this and also create opportunities for exit later on.
And just in terms of equity and being a partner with them, are you looking, like, if a product is successful, are you looking to be part of that and taking it to the Safaricom stable of apps that or ideas that you have, or are you looking to leave the company to run as a partner?
No, in an ideal world, the value would be adding outside of the funding, will be access to network technology. So these companies will get access to network resources like location-based services, M-Pesa APIs, access to airtime billing, access to the App Store, access to a testing environment within the mobile ecosystem that we control, and to be able to test their products in a way that very few developers will have access to. In addition to that, we are looking at mentoring opportunities, giving those young coders a chance to work with senior engineers, businessmen within the organization, marketing professionals, to give them a holistic view of how they need to run their businesses to make them really successful. We would be happy if we could incorporate those products into our stable of services, which means that there's a fairly good success rate. But we are also cognizant that of every 10 investments we make, maybe a number may not succeed for various reasons. We also hope to add value in the form of governance. So we don't intend to be intrusive. It's not our role to manage their businesses, but we will want best practice, ethical best practice. We would want financial management, prudent financial management of resources, and also give them access to technological best practice, which we have.
You've obviously tried and tested a few things that have succeeded and some have failed, but it's a 2-year program. Are you looking to extend this?
Yes. The challenge we've been given by our board is very simple. Show us this can work, and we will pay more attention to it within our wider ecosystem. So Safaricom is part of the Vodafone group. Within the Vodafone group, there are many examples of venture investments done within that ecosystem, and it's something we are looking to replicate within the Kenyan space. So when people talk about the Silicon Savannah, we sort of want to put some real dimensions to it.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
That has been Nzioka White telling us more about the Spark Venture Fund that they launched yesterday. 90 million shillings is out there, chaps. So if you think that you have a valuable idea that has great benefits, Nzioka is always available for you to go and chat.
It's now time to wind up this edition of KTN Newsdesk. 2 Did you know facts before we leave? Did you know that, this is very bizarre, elephants are fighting poachers with evolution? An increasing number of elephants are reportedly being born taskless. Experts think this could be due to males with the biggest tasks being hunted, so the ones with the smaller tasks are mating more, and therefore the ones who are being born have no tasks. A second one, did you know that the older you get, the happier you are? I know they've been lying to us all this time, because you get better at letting go of disappointments the older you get. And studies also show that older brains lose cognitive abilities, so they only concentrate on simple, happy thoughts. In that case, grow old blissfully, and also remember to log on to www.standardmedia.co.ke, where you can get updated on the stories making headlines throughout the day. I'm Edith Kimani. Good afternoon.